For 2013, Riley Blake Designs is introducing a mystery quilt. Each month we will bring to you a surprise block of the month. So this is our first surprise block of the month, and our mystery quilt this year is things that we love at Riley Blake. And so Gina, introduce our first block.
We have decided to do chevron. How could we not? We've
Yes.
got chevron in every color, but we didn't have a block.
And we love chevron, and everybody loves chevron. We love chevron at Riley Blake, so that is our first quilt block that we're going to talk about today.
And of course, we chose pink. So
we both love pink.
We both
we're
love
wearing
pink.
and you can choose whatever colors you want, but we are both doing our blocks in pink. And Gina's already done our block, and she did hers with bright pops of color, and I'm going to do an ombre effect.
This will be really fun. So basically the idea is that you can see that the rows are repeated. You've got a row here that's repeated again here. This row is repeated here, and then this is here. So 3 rows.
And you did 3 colors.
I'm
did. I'm doing 4.
You could basically, what I would suggest is
or you could do just 2.
Yes, you could. You could just do white and pink and white and pink and white. I would just make sure that you've got some kind of sequence, unless you want to do each color a separate color. But make sure somewhere along there you've got some good contrast in your color so that it'll pop that chevron. You want to make sure that your color right here is popping from the next color. Or like yours is going to blend. You're going to go from light to darks.
And our quilt is going to be a sampler quilt, so you'll incorporate these colors and other parts of the quilt, and yeah, we'll just see how it turns out.
So, surprise. So the first thing we want to do is create half square triangles. That's all that is. And there's several methods.
And Dion Stott did a tutorial on half square triangles, and everyone has their own method, and Gina's going to show you.
She uses Eleanor Burns' ruler, which is great.
A great ruler.
And some of us don't all have that ruler, but what you're basically doing is making sure you get a nice finished 2.5-inch square. This block, all the blocks will be finished at 12-inch, so unfinished, they need to be 12.5-inch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Give your seam allowance.
Yes. So first thing, you'll want to take your, actually I like to take your darkest one. So we're going to go white and then light pink. So we'll take the pink.
And how much yardage do you need for this quilt block? I mean, you can use your scraps, your stash.
Yeah, a 3-inch strip of each color should do it. Okay. What you'll do is once you cut your squares, these are 3-inch by 3-inch squares, you'll draw a line from corner to corner. Now, another method, if you don't want to draw, is to just press. So you could take your square and just press, but you really have to be exact.
Precise.
Yes, you want to make sure that it's right, on that line. Then we're going to sew.
So then you're going to put this on here like this.
Yeah, make sure that your line that you traced on is on the outside, it's showing. And then you're going to basically
line up your foot and do your 1/4 inch.
Yeah, 1/4 inch seam allowance on each side. Now, a really great way to do this is just...
We've done this already. We've sewn these. Our first blocks.
We've sewn the first blocks. So then what you'll get is once you cut these, if you'll cut that right down the center of that line. And then what we'll want to do is press. So always press to your seam to the dark side, the dark color. And then you'll want to use this handy dandy little Olfa 2.5-inch cutter or 2.5-inch ruler. Now, if you can line up 2 of the sides, then that would be great. Looks like we can get this lined up here, and then you'll just have to cut on each side of the pinks there.
And this is Sue Daly's rotating mat, and it's a self-healing mat, so you can just use this.
Sue gifted those to us, and we just love them. You can cut on them and turn as you go, and that way you get a nice precise square. Make sure you're lining up your diagonal line right on that seam, and then you'll have this perfect little 2.5-inch square. So we'll want to do that to all of these. So while I'm pressing, we'll want to get all your squares done so that we can start lining them up. And you'll notice as we put these together, this is how this will be sewn. So this is going to be this row right here. Okay.
And we're starting right there.
We're almost finished. And what you're doing is you're creating 2 rows, this row and this row, but they're opposite. You've got your pink here and you've got your white there. So this is our first lightest colors in our ombre.
There we go.
And so the next thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to sew these together. Now the most important thing,
I guess we can.
right. But these, let's see, this is going to go
like that
way.
So I'll grab a couple pins. Sorry for reaching.
And so make sure you're sewing so that when you begin here, when you open, you'll have this 1/4 inch, this nice 1/4 inch, so that when you go to sew your rows together, you're getting your point, because you want your chevron point in your design.
So we're doing our nice 1/4 inch.
Yep.
And then I guess we'll just. So we'll get these all pinned. And then we'll take them to the machine.
And you'll sew these together. All right.
So we chain piece these, and we've sewn them together.
And then we'll just
So
cut
you
them all
get
apart,
to
and let's just press
iron
them
them.
open. And
But now that we've got our blocks together, now we just have to assemble each row like this.
And here you go. Here's your second row, the opposite with the white in the center, and like the pink.
So this is going to be the beginning, and this is going to be the ending row.
Right. So what you want to do is pin those together and then sew each row.
I do want to pin the other row. And quilting is so much fun. It's a lot funner to do with a friend.
It is much
It can
funner when
help
you have someone
you with
ironing
iron
and pressing.
For you and helping
Yes.
you cut.
And then they don't let you make mistakes,
That's
right?
That's right. Keep you in check.
Okay, so there's going to be your first 2 rows of your ombre.
Right.
It's going to be cute.
Let's take it.
Okay.
So
Okay, here we are.
So we've assembled our blocks. I'm going to give them a nice iron.
Iron those up.
I'm going to pull out the blocks we've already assembled and sewn together and ironed. So these go like this, creating our chevron from right
Yes,
start.
and you want to double check that you've
that
got all
zigzag
your,
going along.
yes. Let's see,
That must go up on top.
let's go up here, like this,
Just like that. So you get this nice wave.
and that like that.
Okay, and then
So
I
what
guess
we'll do
just
is
flip them over.
piece those together.
one at a
So,
time.
and you'll notice you've got your nice 1/4 inch here on this end and here on this end. So this can get tricky in that you have to nestle those right into each other, the seams, and then make sure that you're only taking that 1/4 inch, because you really do not want to take your point
Off there.
You want to make sure you keep your point here, and then you want to keep your point up on the other end.
We can start at the top. So maybe I'll just start
that
with
good?
the top.
And then you'll want
Get
a
that.
pin in each seam.
Good
And
job.
pinning is the best way to keep all those seams right together.
Holding in place.
And if worst case scenario, always take maybe a scant smaller than a 1/4 inch seam. That way you can always go back and take more in your seam, but this is where you have to fudge just a little bit to create and keep your points. So go a little less, and
That's
then
good
if
tip.
you have to, go back and do a little more.
Okay, well, we'll just finish this up. We'll take it over to the machine
There's another pin.
and sew this together. So we finished sewing our block. We've ironed it. We make sure we pressed it in all one direction.
Yep.
And my ombre block is all finished.
Yes.
And your block, you can choose to have a high contrast fabric.
Right. And
This is
now
more
just to
contrast.
finish this off, we'll want to make sure that we just square it up to a 12.5-inch unfinished block. This will be 12-inch once it's seamed in, but 12.5 unfinished. What you want to make sure is when you're squaring up, again, to have this nice 1/4 inch here.
So you
But
don't cut it
this is
small.
squared up,
Okay.
just so that we can keep our seams nice and straight.
Okay, looks
And
great.
there you go.
And we've got our chevron block. So I hope you'll join us this next year in making each surprise block of the month.